Hello and welcome to Sureena Speaks, and this channel is aimed for pre-reg students but also pharmacy students, medical students, healthcare professionals and just those of you who are curious to know more about medicines. So what is Sureena Speaks and why did I create it? Well, a few years ago I was a pre-reg student myself, and I think the best way to sum up especially the first few months of pre-reg was overwhelming. I completely underestimated how hardy it was going to be, particularly because I didn't realize how tired I was going to be. And yeah, I think it was just such an overwhelming year that there was just so much to take in and to absorb. And at many times I felt a little bit lonely as well and lost. I didn't really know what to revise, where to revise, what resources to use, where to turn to, where to go to. Hence, once I qualified, I set up this channel so that you guys don't feel how I did, basically, and I'll try and help support your learning needs as much as possible. So I get asked quite often, what's the best way to revise? And I think that's quite a hard question to answer because some of us are visual learners, some of us are audio learners, but I'd say if that works for you, then why not check out the rest of the Sureena Speaks videos? But also, I think a really great way to revise is actually actively revising whilst you're at work because it utilizes your time so much more efficiently. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, I talk about this a lot, but really and truly, I think it's the best way to revise. What I would say though to begin with is especially when you're starting out in those first few months, because everything can be slightly overwhelming, I think the best way to go about it is to actually just learn what your day-to-day routine activities are, what is expected of you, and get to learn the general running of the pharmacy. Then once you're feeling a bit more comfortable and confident and you know what your routine is like, you know where in the day you'll be able to do some revision, or you're used to your journey time, it might take you maybe half an hour to get home, an hour to get home, however long it may be, but then you know that, okay, I have X amount of time when I come home to then do some revision. At least then you can plan and tailor your revision accordingly. So I mentioned this actively revising whilst on the job, but what does that actually mean? It means actively learning whilst you're doing. And because during the day you'll mostly be dealing with patient queries and prescriptions and everything else going on, you don't want your own revision to sort of slack behind. So by actively revising up whilst you're at work, you're making your revision and utilizing your time so much more efficiently. But how can you actively revise? Well, even the smallest of tasks, such as taking a prescription, you can actively revise. How? Well, say you get given a prescription, you can check, is it legally valid? Because that is something that they could ask you in an exam. So is it still in date? Is there a signature on there? If it's a CD prescription, a controlled drug prescription, then is the quantity written in words and figures, for example? Then, once you're happy that it's legally valid, actually check, do the medicines that are on this prescription potentially interact with each other? And then when you're processing the prescription, have a look. Any new medicines that is on this prescription, could it potentially interact with anything on the patient's medical records? And with most systems, they do pop up with little messages when drug X will interact with drug Y, and it then states what kind of interaction that may have. For example, a hypotensive effect. So jot that down if that was something that you didn't realize before. And when you do get a free moment at work or once you're back home after work, then look it up a bit further. The same goes if you come across a medicine that you've never heard of. Maybe you're putting stock away and this medicine was ordered in for a particular patient, but it's not one that is commonly ordered in, so you don't really know much about it. Jot the name of it down. And again, when you get a free moment, have a look at the indications, side effects, and are there any particulars with it? For example, can it only be used in men, or can it be only be used in a certain age range, for example? So doing all these little activities whilst you're at work actually enhances your learning so much. Now, one particular area that I hated doing as a pre-reg was Dossett boxes, and my thumb took ages to recover from doing Dossett boxes because I think we had over 90 Dossett box patients, and yep, I had the fun job of popping out all those pills. It was not fun, but actually, in hindsight, I'm really grateful that I got to do that, because I learned a lot about timings of medicines and what medicines should be taken at what time, which medicines should be taken half an hour before other medicines or an hour before other medicines. So if you do Dossett boxes in your store and you haven't had the chance yet, then definitely try and do a few Dossett boxes, because you actually learn a lot through doing them. And if your store is one that does methadone, then have a look at the methadone book. What particulars need to be written on there? How do you do a CD balance? Because all in all, yes, you'll be learning and you'll be revising for the exam, but ultimately, you want to be a competent and confident pharmacist by the end of this process. So all of these, yes, will help for the exam, but they will also help in you being the pharmacist that you need to be, and being confident in your abilities too. So then once you get a bit more settled at work, start going through your BNF chapter by chapter. I have made videos based on each chapter of a BNF, so why not check them out? But these are summaries of the BNF chapters, so it is still worth actually going through your BNF and highlighting, underlining, reading out loud, whatever works best for you, and create posters, for example. Like I said, whatever works best for you, but definitely go through each chapter and then do questions on each chapter. There are many questions and resources out there, so definitely take a look at that, and at least it will highlight areas that you are confident in and maybe areas that you need a little bit of brushing up on. Now, with most of the questions, particularly in the exam, they do like to overlap with different chapters. And they'll give you, for example, a case scenario where patient X is on 5 different medicines and suddenly they've got some kind of interaction, maybe they've got increased myopathy, and they'll want you to figure out of those 5 medicines, which of the 2 have interacted to cause that increased myopathy. So just be aware of that. And also, the exam isn't testing your memory. It's testing how you can apply your knowledge. Now, if you're someone like me who hasn't got a particularly great memory, it works in our favour. Now, don't get me wrong, they will ask questions where it's literally, what is the side effect of metformin? And that is something that you would have had to remember from your notes, for example. But then in saying that, if, for example, a new patient is starting on metformin, you can give them the counselling points on what the side effects of metformin are so that they'll be aware of it once they start taking it. And not only is that helping the patient, but that is also helping reinforce your learning. So again, going back to actively revising whilst you're at work. So when that question comes in the exam, you'll think, hey, I know the answer to that one, and you'll confidently be able to put your answer down. So yeah, so some questions will be a simple case of what is a side effect, X, Y, Z. Some questions will be a bit more, here is a scenario, here is a situation, now let's try to apply your knowledge. And actually, once you've gone through all chapters of BNF and you're able to make those links and those connections, it will make things so much more easier. And what I'd also say is it's really important to have a strong positive mindset. Anyone that works in a patient-facing, public-facing, customer-facing role will be able to empathize with me when I say this, but people can be quite mean. And because you're the face of a situation, they'll think it's okay to vent their anger towards you. And it took me a long while to develop a thicker, tougher skin in order to deal with those really harsh, difficult situations. But you have to remember that your day is made up of moments. And yes, you may have a really horrible customer screaming in your face. That's a bad moment. And I know this is really easier said than done, but try not to let that affect the rest of your day. Because in your day, you may have some really lovely moments where you learn something new or you have an interaction with a patient that really makes your day. Because you do get to meet some really, really lovely people too and build up those strong relationships and rapport with them. So yeah, you might have a bad moment, but you also equally might have a good moment too. And having that positive mindset and remembering that, I think, goes a really, really long way. And make links with each other. The great thing about pre-reg is that there's a load of you that are all in the same boat, so you can all help each other out. If one of your friends is in a hospital environment and you're in a community environment, Help each other out, because there will be a lot of things about the community side that maybe the person in hospital isn't too strong on, for example, over-the-counter medication and preparations. And equally, someone who's in a community environment might not know much about medicines information or intravenous routes, chemotherapy medication. So you can actually learn a lot from each other. So make those links and make those connections. Pharmacy is such a small world. Everyone knows everyone by the end of it. So it's really important to make those strong relationships and connections now, and build on those relationships that you do have, build on those foundations, and get to know each other and help each other out. And when it comes to the OTC side of things, it is quite a chunky part that they do like to put in the exam in general. So I think, yeah, you can learn OTC from a book. I've also done a video on OTC as well, so check that out too. But I think one of the best ways to learn OTC is, if you're in an environment where you can, get yourself on the healthcare counter and be familiar and start familiarising yourself with what products you have in store. And maybe if you get a chance, look at any warning labels that might be on there. Maybe there's some products that can only be sold in 16 to 65-year-old women. Maybe there's some products that can only be sold in over 16-year-olds, over 12-year-olds. So the more that you get exposed to the healthcare counter, interacting with patients, remembering your WAMO questions, then at least that's going to reinforce your learning. And again, it goes back to being able to actively revise whilst you're at work. And make sure to have a social life. It's so important to make sure that your world doesn't just become pharmacy and pre-reg and exam, because you will make yourself go crazy. Make sure that you do have your downtime as well, that you do whatever it is that relaxes your mind, chills you out, and have a social life. I mean, as soon as I came out of pharmacy school, I thought, yeah, pre-reg year is going to be chilling because I'm not going to have coursework or deadlines to think about. I'll just be working, do a bit of revision, then I'll be able to go out, meet up with my friends, that kind of thing. But no, that did not happen because I was so tired. Have that social life, have those good times, do things that relax your mind, because like I said, you'll make yourself go cuckoo pops if you don't. So yes, it's really important to focus on the exam, make that your priority, and do as much revision as you can, but equally it's important to just give yourself a break too. It's a tough year. I am not going to lie to you. For me, in my personal life and in my professional life, pre-reg year was the hardest year that I had to endure. And hopefully through the aid of this channel, it will make that journey and make your learning that little bit more easier and a little bit more bearable to deal with. But you can do this and you can get through this. And if you have any questions or queries, or you want me to make any videos on any specific topics, then just comment below or check out my Facebook page and comment on there, send me a message. I've also got Instagram, Twitter, so make sure to check those. Don't know what my hair's doing there. So make sure to check those out too. I do upload more extra learning resources and material. And don't forget to subscribe, like, share with your friends, and let's get learning together. Happy revisings!